Only Murders in the Building. This is the latest series to come to us from Hulu, and if I'm not mistaken, I do believe it was reported to be the biggest opening for any show on Hulu ever, which is kind of impressive because Hulu's got its own audience going on there, and that's cool. So I went into this show with very little expectations. I kind of just went like, oh my goodness, Steve Martin and Martin Short are coming to television. That is a lot to deal with. Like, how are you supposed to prepare for that? Those are two legendary talents in both acting, dramedies and comedies and all that. And they're just incredibly funny and vibrant guys, but they're also in their 70s. So part of me goes, how are they going to be able to capture that magic that we've seen them do for decades prior? Can they do that again in a show on Hulu? Turns out they can. It turns out they can, because Only Murders in the Buildings is incredibly funny, incredibly powerful, a great story, and has a lot of good stuff going for it. One of the things that really surprised me about this show just from the get-go was how modern it takes itself, because we're dealing with two of the three leads in this, they're in their 70s, and that is going to be something where you kind of go, oh, this is going to be the old man humor kind of thing, like those classic bits they've done, but no, we modern up. They're learning to do new things of technology and experience new things in the world, and they're actually committing themselves to the modern technologies and ideologies of storytelling, which is kind of cool to see. I think one of the biggest things about this show that I noticed right away was just how many different and diverse individuals are represented on the show, not just between, like ethnicities and especially abled people, but I think in terms of ages too, you got almost every demographic of age covered in a main or a bit playing role, which is very cool to see, especially in a show that's like a comedy like this. It's rare that you see that. I'd hearken it to something like Superstore, because Superstore had the right type of diversity of different characters and people. This is exactly the same thing. We're seeing all these different walks of life together in this building, and it's an incredibly fun experience to see that. So pretty much the premise for the show, we are seeing the events of this exclusively rich building in New York, the Arconia, and there's a murder in that building. Now we have three people who live there, Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez, and they are all podcast fanatics. They listen to true crime podcasts, and when there's a murder in their building, they decide, hey, why don't we try to solve the murder, and we could turn it into a podcast. First off, it is really rare to get podcasting fanatics or people that podcast done right on screen. It always comes across as cringy or wrong, and I think this does a pretty good job of capturing the feeling of a podcaster, which is kind of weird to say, but it's just like, there's a respect for it, there's a reverence for it, there's this idea that not everybody can do it, that it's an art form, that there's effort involved into making it something special, which kind of gets lost along the way when it's not presented in a proper setting. It's not easy to do sometimes. I can sit here and talk about whatever in front of a mic for as long as I want. That doesn't make it art. There's a pageantry to it, there's a specialty to it, and it presents that in a positive way, which I really like to see. It's just a really, really good representation of podcasting and the world at large, because true crime podcasting, it's not something I personally listen to, but I know there's a big genre for it. It's got its fanatics, it's got its fans. But what really surprised me about the show is just how well Steve Martin and Martin Short could hit those beats again. First off, I've always loved Steve Martin. He is just the quiet, funny guy. He just says what he needs to. He, reacts in certain ways. The social anxiety cues that he plays up, it's all very funny, and I understand it and relate to it. But man, is he willing to commit himself to certain bits. For a guy his age, this idea that, I could never be committed to a relationship, the world around me has kind of left me behind, and I'm trying to get back into this world after meeting these people I care about. It's an impressive story to see, especially for a guy in his stature. He does a lot of physical comedy too, which is insanely impressive to see. And I've just you still got it. You still have the comedic timing. You still know how to do the right facial cues and all that. And he is such a standout on the show. But my goodness, is Martin Short just exemplifying the caricature he's played in most of his career to a T. He's an older aged man now, so it's not as outgoing, but when it's outgoing, it is perfect. and it is incredibly funny. And one of my favorite bits of comedy that they play with in this show is having Martin Short's character kind of be this, guy who's produced like musicals and stage plays and theater throughout that. So he kind of like talks like the lingo throughout the show, and having that be something he does, it just a small amount of fourth wall breaking where it's kind of just like, hey, this would be a great way to end the episode. This is a great final line. If this was the finale, it'd be a great way for the finale to go. Curtains up, people. The show's about to start. Just the way he says those things to the characters, it just plays up as like, this like kind of fourth wall breaking trope throughout the entirety of the show. And it just comes across very naturally, which is very cool to see. Now, I am a mixed fan of Selena Gomez throughout most of her career. I think she has done a lot of good stuff. I think she has done some weird stuff there, but of course, when you get in that Disney Channel bubble, it's hard to get out of that and break free. And I think she does really good here. I'm not going to say her performance blew me away at every turn. It didn't. It was good. She did fine. I do think any other actress could play that kind of role, but I was surprised to see how deadpan she remained throughout most of it. She's pretty much the straight man to the other people, which I'm like, that's interesting. It also kind of makes sense considering she is of that, let's not overreact generation. And then, the guys in their 70s are like, let's solve this crime. Let's get into it. Let's go. And that makes sense to me. And I think she did a good job. Again, could another actress have filled that role? I think so. Can I picture any other actress in the role? Not currently, just because Selena embodied that perfectly. She really just captured the essence of what that needed to be and made it work really cool. Like I said, the fourth wall breaking humor was really fun to see, and the way that these old guys are trying to deal with the modern times is great. But aside from that, just the small off bits and the one-liners I think are very funny. The stuff with like the cat and the dog, with playing with those bits, the idea of gut milk. What a weird random thing to throw in there that just makes it work really well and makes it incredibly funny. The bit players, there are so many supporting characters in here that are really funny and interesting, played by some well-respected actors. I'm not going to mention any of like their actual storyline, but Tina Fey is in here, Sting is in here, Nathan Lane is in here, Jane Lynch is in here. It's just really cool to see what they do. I'm just like, wow. You know how to use these people perfectly, and it does something very impressive with them that's actually interesting to see, very fun. Nathan Lane in particular has one incredible scene towards the middle of the show that it's just hilarious, and he just fits perfectly into this world of Martin Short and Steve Martin. Like, them bouncing and playing off each other is incredibly fun to see. I like that a lot. I also like that the murder plot itself takes a lot of interesting turns. Now, it's not like over the top or super hard to figure out. It slowly reveals itself as the story goes on, as any good, true crime story does. I think it just plays that right tone of being a little campy and stupid to actually being this incredibly thought-provoking and interesting crime drama. You could probably take this exact story and do it in a drama setting where it's not like played up for jokes and the yucks and anything. And I think the actual way the crime and the murder is presented would play just as strong if it wasn't done in the comedy setting, which is pretty cool to say. Like, just the fact that this is like a true crime story, but we're just having these fun guys and this gal come in to make their jokes and have a good time. It's really cool, the fact that it works, and it just adds so much more to this show that everybody is firing on all cylinders. There's so much potential in a show like this to miss the mark. These guys could be out of touch. Gomez could be boring and portrayed poorly. The story could be bland. The jokes couldn't land. But everything just fired perfectly. It hit all the right notes. It hit all the right beats. There's a great episode in the middle of the season that's dedicated to Nathan Lane's son. He is a deaf person, and that episode is pretty much just like a silent film, and we're just experiencing it through his eyes. It is insanely well done, and I think that could have got so annoying, but they made it work, just switching up the tone a little bit. It's very well done and very impressive to see that note. I just was like, it's great to see that this works. It's great to see that we can have this show, that it's quiet, but it's funny. It just works perfectly. And the fact that it's getting a second season, I have to commend the Martin guys there for just committing to this, because they could have phoned it in. But if this is the one that brings you back into the public consciousness, that's amazing. Their timing together, again, it's so perfect and brilliant. They are just the two ends of the same coin. It is fantastic. And this show just impressed me in a way I wasn't expecting it to. I thought it'd be a quiet little comedy, but it's smart, it's intriguing, it's creative, it's different, it is diverse, it is fantastic. I like all aspects of this show, and I don't think there is a single thing wrong with it. If anything, I wish it was longer, but I understand doing the true crime thing, keep it at a nice pace, that makes it flow all the better. But this was incredible, and if you haven't checked it out yet, do yourself a favor and watch it, because you're going to be blown away by the timing of these guys in their 70s. They still got it. They still got it all these years later. They could still hit the right beats, and that's very impressive to see. So, Only Murders in the Building, season number 1. I am going to give a 9 out of 10. Now, thank you guys for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck.